Hello, everybody. I'm Susanna Kennedy, as you know, and you're watching Thrive Network. And today we're speaking about something that I think is so important for every single woman to understand. We're talking about egg quality and whether you're wanting to have a baby now naturally or whether you're wanting to freeze your eggs or whether you're getting ready for IVF. This is the conversation covering all things egg health.
One of the things that was so shocking to me in the process was just how little guidance and advice we received from the doctors around our lifestyle and how that could affect not just, our egg quality, but the potential of those eggs to be, to become a baby in the future. You could only have a few eggs, but all it matters is that they're quality, because that is going to be the determinant as to whether or not that egg turns into a healthy baby.
Whether you're thinking about trying to conceive immediately, or it's something that you're looking to do in the future, or actually if you're not even interested in having a child or carrying a child, or if those years are past, essentially what we're talking about is optimizing female hormonal health. And that really underpins all of your reproductive mechanisms. But as you know very well, Susanna, every aspect of, what makes a thriving woman. So that's your emotional well-being, as well as all of your physical markers of health.
It is about living a holistically healthy lifestyle and really being centered and conscious about every decision you make, from everything you put in your mouth to everything you put on your skin, to the exercise that you do, and all of these kind of different things. Hello and good evening, everybody. I'm Susanna Kennedy, as you know, and you're watching Thrive Network. We are live streaming through Instagram and Facebook. So if you see my eyes darting up and down, that's what I'm doing. I'm checking all of you beautiful people out. And today we're speaking about something that I think is so important for every single woman to understand. And that is, how do we enhance the quality of our eggs? If you're wanting to become a mom, whether you're wanting to go the fertility route now, intravenous, how do we make our eggs the best quality possible? And I met these two amazing women about 2.5 years ago, I think now already, and they were busy writing an incredible book, and now they've finished it. And I want to welcome them here today, Brittany and Catherine. How are you ladies doing?
Great. Thanks for having us, Susanna.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
It's such a pleasure. You guys are tuned in from all over the world. Where are you ladies coming from?
Well, I'm out here in San Francisco in California.
And I'm in London in the UK. So significantly less glamorous than the location right now.
I don't think
and
it's
your own.
Glamorous at all. I think that both places are amazing places, but we all met in Cape Town. I'm actually not in Cape Town at the moment either. So I'm in Johannesburg right now. And I remember both of you were going through the process of putting your eggs on ice at that time. And tell us a little bit about that. And either one can start. Catherine, you can start, or Brittany can start.
Yeah, so I freeze my eggs, as you said, about 2-3 years ago now. Completely can't remember exactly when it was, about 3 years ago. And the reason I did that is because I was in my early 30s, I was newly single, and I didn't want to be in a huge rush to have to meet somebody. And put simply, fertility declines with age. And it's that kind of catch-22 when you know that the time's not right to start thinking about building a family, but you really know that one day you want to have that option of a biological link with your child. And so for me at the time, it felt like the best way to buy some time, I suppose, without having to kind of like get everything in order in kind of all of my prerequisites, like a stable relationship and getting to a certain point in my career, and just having more of a kind of sense of a good foundation, really, in which I personally would want to raise a child. So that was my kind of motivation for egg freezing. And in terms of the process, it was a bit of a mixed bag. It was empowering. So I know that word's used quite a lot about freezing your eggs, and sometimes it's overused because it kind of doesn't fully articulate some of the difficulties that do surround it too, especially when you're doing it alone, as I was, without a partner, and like the majority of women who freeze their eggs are, because that's the main reason research shows why women freeze their eggs. It's because they haven't found that person that they'd like to start a family with yet, or their partner isn't ready to start a family. And so it can be quite isolating, and it can be kind of emotional. And that's for a few different reasons, I suppose, because number one, you're injecting a whole load of hormones for a few weeks. And so it's like an extreme version of PMS. And then secondly, whenever you're making a huge kind of decision that affects the rest of your life, or that makes you sit up and think about your life plans and what it is that you really want out of life, I think that's kind of a moment for pause and reflection, and can make you kind of, really think over your decisions, and it can be quite a hectic moment. Yeah. But Britt's story was actually quite different to mine.
It was, and that's actually, I remember interviewing you guys for the first time, and it was two such different stories, and I thought that was so great, because so many women feel like they're on this journey and they're all alone, but actually there's so many women on very different journeys but experiencing very similar things. And so I love that both of you were coming from two very different places, but you actually went through similar things while you were going through this process. And I can see we've got people live on Facebook and Instagram. Guys, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are talking about the egg freezing process, but we're also going to be talking about egg health. And that was, I remember, the thing that struck me most about our last interview together was that whether you are wanting to freeze your eggs or whether you're wanting to have a baby naturally, the egg health is the most important. So if you guys are listening, and if you've got any questions, please do type them below and say hi and let me know where in the world you're tuning in from, because I can't see you guys unless you actually comment below. So please do just say hi, tuning in from wherever. And please do leave any questions or comments that that you think might benefit everybody that's listening here today and be part of the conversation. So Brittany, your experience was quite different. Tell us a little bit about yours.
Yeah, as we discussed last time, I mean, I actually was married at the time that I decided I wanted to freeze my eggs. I just, my husband and I were both living in Cape Town, and just we had a lot of life plans up in the air, and as such, knowing that I am in my 30s now and that fertility really does start to decline around this time, not, using it as an opportunity to, it's not a guarantee, but at least gives me some semblance of comfort knowing that I have that as an option potentially in the future. And especially because we probably want 2 kids. So, you don't think about it. Maybe I could get pregnant right now, but then what if I want a kid in 2 years? What is my fertility going to look like then? So those were sort of the internal thought processes that made me decide to freeze. And then, I didn't think I had a needle phobia because my mom's a nurse. I thought, oh, I got this covered. And it was so terrifying. I actually fainted in the process. It was a little more petrifying than I had thought. And one of the things that was so shocking to me in the process was just how little guidance and advice we received from the doctors around our lifestyle and how that could affect not just, our egg quality, but the potential of those eggs to be, to become a baby in the future. So if we were spending all this money, I wanted to know what I could do to actually help increase the odds of success. And that's where I just found there to be quite a gap in the clinical care. And that's where really Catherine and I decided that we wanted to fill that gap. We wanted to do our research, and we spent a year and a half, over the time we spoke to you last time, where we were really diving deep. We analyzed over 3,000 medical journals. We worked with the CDC and regulatory bodies like the ASRM in the US. And we really found those key lifestyle factors that can optimize, as you talked about, your egg quality. And just a little bit of feedback or a little more context on that. Your egg quality is, the technical term is, has your egg undergone chromosomal processing successfully? And it doesn't, you could only have a few eggs, but all it matters is that their quality, because that is going to be the determinant as to whether or not that egg turns into a healthy baby. So that's really where we focused our research and our efforts. And that's what we have written into a book, and we now have a Fertility Fit app that's all there to help women just understand what they can do, not just for natural pregnancy, but also just your reproductive health, like understanding that our reproductive health is just a proxy for health. As women, we just have different mechanisms that determine that. So we really are, very excited and motivated to spread the word about all these factors, because they'll influence your body, whether or not you're trying to have a baby or go through fertility treatment. So it's definitely worthwhile listening to.
That was actually one of the questions I was going to ask you, because it is about living a holistically healthy lifestyle and really being centered and conscious about every decision you make, from everything you put in your mouth to everything you put on your skin to the exercise that you do and all of these kind of different things. And both of you, I was asking the ladies just before we went live, guys, I said, have either of you actually had a baby since we spoke? And neither of them have. But have you continued on this process? Like, have you embraced the advice that you give women to really create the best quality eggs? Have you embraced those things as a lifestyle, as a way of being?
Yeah, it's exactly as Britt was saying. It's sort of whether you're thinking about trying to conceive immediately, or it's something that you're looking to do in the future, or actually if you're not even interested in having a child or carrying a child, or if those years are past, essentially what we're talking about is optimizing female hormonal health. And that really underpins all of your reproductive mechanisms. But, as you know very well, Susanna, every aspect of, what makes a thriving woman. So that's your emotional well-being, as well as all of your physical markers of health. So it really, 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 benefits you to have this foundation of hormone balance.
And you guide women right from when they go, okay, I am thinking I might want to have a baby, to all the way to either freezing their eggs or actually having the baby. And I love your website, by the way, guys. Their website is called Elanza Wellness. That's ELANZA Wellness. And it says fertility care everywhere. We're on a mission to radically improve the quality and efficiency of fertility care. Find out more. And I think that may be a good thing to just empower some of the ladies that are listening. I know you've got a number of different aspects to your website and to what you do, but tell us just an overview. You've got an amazing app, and I started looking through it and I got so excited because, you've got everything from meditations to what else? I'm not going to go through it. You go through it because you guys actually built the app. But how did you come up with all of the different things, and what are the different things in the app?
I'll let Kat take this one because, I'll give you a preview. Kat, Catherine, is a certified yoga instructor and is excellent at leading meditations. So we have a whole section on meditations that are actually really great just in general, but also can align with various stages of the treatment journey. And then rather than, we've written this book, but it is hard to kind of read a pretty, fertility focused book from cover to cover. It's not necessarily a thriller, but we've used the app as a way to say, 10 minutes a day, that's all you need to just listen to a short podcast while you're, in the shower, while you're getting ready for work, whatever it is, just enough to get little bite-sized pieces of information about small things you can do to optimize their egg quality. And I think we'll discuss some of those things later, but it's really just about aligning, taking all that information and making it usable bite-sized, accomplishable, and then bringing in some of those secondary that content really, which is the meditations. We've got supplements that we would recommend just because there's a lot of stuff out there, so it's hard to know what to choose. And then also we've got some exercise routines that are good based on different stages in the journey. And yeah, that's actually, it's for free on both the App Store, the Android and iOS App Store.
And the audio guides for fertility that are in there are essentially audio guides for hormone health, as we were saying, and they're those bite-sized snippets that you can listen to every day. And then things like the meditations that we've included in there, really that's because there's this growing body of evidence that suggests that by practicing meditation, by practicing kind of healthful forms of exercise like yoga, you can influence your hormones sort of in this mind-body symbiotic relationship as well. So fertility is a hormonal process, so it involves obviously your sex hormones like estrogen and progesterone, but actually strangely also in some sense, because hormones are so cascading, involves dopamine and it involves cortisol. And so when one of these hormones is out of whack, that can cause a kind of knock-on effect, a domino effect to other hormones that could affect ovulation or could affect, your uterus being able to have the optimum conditions for implantation of an embryo. So there are some studies specifically looking at interventions such as yoga and meditation for unexplained infertility, because 20% of the time when somebody's facing infertility, a doctor can't even give them an answer, because we're still kind of in the dark ages when it comes to understanding our reproductive systems. And partly that's due to the fact that historically women's health has been super underfunded as an area of research, but that is a whole other topic that we won't get on our soapbox about right now. And so, in instances like that, where it's that somebody has had recurrent miscarriage, or somebody is really struggling to conceive, or maybe just it's taking a really long time. And as Britt was saying, when you feel like you're up against the clock, time's running out, and you are spending a long time trying to get pregnant with your first child, and you want 2 or 3, and it's only going to get harder the older you get, then actually reducing time to conception and ensuring a much smoother journey through pregnancy is so, so important, physically as well as mentally. And so, yeah, meditating and yoga, all these sorts of things that rewire your system to kind of bring you down from that level of chronic stress that so many of us face nowadays through lack of sleep and too much screen time and the general sort of constant stimulations of our environment, not to mention all of the other things going on in our bodies that we don't even know how they're affecting our nervous systems. So endocrine disrupting chemicals and so forth, we can go into them a bit further. It's super important to set aside time for rebalancing your hormones and actually letting your body be in its most comfortable resting state, where it doesn't feel like it's fighting battles every day, because evolutionarily we're just not wired to conceive in that kind of context.
Absolutely. So, with all of that said, because I completely agree with you ladies, there's a mind, body, heart, soul connection that needs to be in alignment. And when we don't look after ourselves properly, it's very hard to be in a state that can bring in a healthy, happy baby. And so these things are so, so important. One of the comments that we got before the show was, how long before you decide that you want to be a mom? So whether it is that you want to start trying to fall pregnant, or whether it is before you decide you're going to actually freeze, should you start making these changes in your life? What is the minimum time? So if they had to plan, what would that lead up time be?
Go ahead, Brittany.
Well, the growth of basically your eggs go from the size of a grain of sand to about the size of, like a peanut or an almond, even growing into that side, in the course of 3 months. So the 3-month time frame is optimal for influencing your egg quality. And also there's some supplements such as ubiquinol that we often recommend that only start to kick in once a certain amount of time. So 3 months would be the ideal scenario. But then that said, age is the most important factor when it comes to fertility. So if you're up against a timeline, I would say start trying sooner than later. But if you do have the time to kind of really focus on your health, 3 months is absolutely the time frame you could be looking at.
Okay, brilliant. And what would be because obviously people, and I really encourage everyone to download this app, all of you beautiful ladies who are listening, and it doesn't matter what age you are. The reality is so many women leave falling pregnant, having babies, freezing their eggs to a later stage. And ideally you want to do it earlier rather than later, as early as possible, actually, rather than later. And freezing your eggs isn't going to diminish anything in your physiology, as far as I know, ladies. So please correct me if I'm wrong. But if you are in your early 20s and you think, you know what, I'm just going to do it now just so that I get those eggs frozen, it's not going to affect you in any adverse way for the future, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Although you'd be quite hard pressed to find a fertility doctor who'd advocate freezing in your early 20s, because it's that kind of cost benefit analysis of how likely you would be to use them. So there's kind of like a bit of an ethical issue for them there. Having said that, if somebody has a health condition, if they know they have endometriosis or even PCOS, then that could be something they might want to discuss with their gynecologist or fertility doctor and consider freezing their 20s for sure. But most doctors would say the ideal time would be around 30, because then your eggs are still or your body is still young enough that it's able to relatively easily mature good quality eggs. And so you know that the eggs you're freezing are likely to be of good quality that could result in a baby if they're thawed. But at the same time, you're not so young that theoretically you could go the natural route.
Okay.
But I think you do bring up, we actually get a lot of questions. A lot of people think, oh, but if you're taking all these eggs out, have I lost those eggs? I never get them back? But you lose an average of about 33 follicles, which contain your eggs, per day over the course of a month. So you can't help it. They are leaving your body whether or not you like it. And it's just one that actually makes it to the point of ovulation, and that's why you have your monthly cycle. But I think that it is a common misconception that if you're extracting all these eggs, then it is somehow depleting your reserves. But actually what the hormones, which are actually it's called follicle stimulation hormone, which is a synthetic form of a hormone that's already created in your body. And it just signals to your ovaries that, nope, it's time. We actually want to mature these eggs further along than they normally would have. And that's really the only difference in the course of the cycle of egg freezing versus your regular menstrual cycle. So that's a great one to bring up, because it is the common misconception. And there have been studies around, does it cause cancer? And the overarching research indicates that it does not. So there really aren't it doesn't physiologically change your body. It doesn't deplete your egg reserves. It really is just a uptick of a hormone already created in your body to further mature some of the eggs that would have otherwise been lost.
And I think that that's such an important point to bring up, because although it doesn't diminish your eggs when you do it earlier, the older you get, ladies and gentlemen, the quality of your eggs does diminish, if I'm correct, ladies. And so that is a question that's coming through now Does it make a difference to having a child later in life if it's not your first child? And I would say absolutely. And I'll let you guys explain why. What happens to your eggs as you get older?
So if it's not your first child, then statistically you're far less likely to struggle with fertility, purely because it's already proven that you can get pregnant and you can carry a child to term. So in that sense, sometimes doctors would say it's less concerning if someone approaches them for assistance and they've already had a child. But on that note, secondary infertility, which is being able to conceive and carry a child with no problem previously, but then struggling to conceive again, is a real and a growing phenomenon as all of us are having kids later. So ultimately, lifestyle is important, and sort of proven fertility, for lack of a better term, is important as a factor. But at the same time, age is the number one consideration. So if you had your first child at 25 and then you waited until 40 to try to conceive with your second, then ultimately your eggs are in the same boat as any other 40-year-old.
Okay, another question that's coming through. Sorry, I'm diving into questions. I will ask you, ladies, for just 5 things that everybody can kind of take away. But I've got she's actually one of my lovely top fans, and she's 35 years old. She has had side effects from meningitis, which has caused her system to be under fatigue. Her she's got digestive issues, memory issues, and hip pain. Where would you recommend she starts in terms of hormones to check mainly? She's hoping to fall pregnant next year as she's getting married, and she's found someone that she wants to start a life with. So where would you recommend someone like this, a 35-year-old, start?
So just to preface this answer with, this is not medical advice. We're not doctors and we're not trained medical professionals. This is purely from the body of our own research and our own experiences with fertility. But personally, I would find, if it's within budget, I would find an excellent naturopathic doctor and go and find somebody whose whole speciality is in systemic wellness, in these sorts of hormone investigations and healing the gut. It sounds like that might be an incredible place to start. So starting to look at dietary changes, starting to think about what sorts of supplements to add, and how to help balance or rebalance her system through other means. So checking out what are her sleep patterns like, and exercise, and kind of checking for underlying issues that could be involved. So thyroid is massive. 1 in 8 women in the course of their lifetimes will experience a thyroid issue. So that's just the people who are actually medicated and diagnosed. And there's a lot of kind of credible evidence to say that there are many, many more people who are borderline, who maybe have kind of slightly over or slightly under active thyroids, but that's not currently properly being picked up on because the testing is a pretty blunt instrument with some pretty broad ranges at the moment. So that would be my suggestion, is find an incredible naturopath who can help you heal from the inside out. Britt, what would you say?
And there might be some blood tests that they can do. Often, going through something like that, a sickness of surgery or whatnot, it can dysregulate your hormones. So there's that thing. And then Kat brings up a really good point about gut health. We talk about the microbiome, and to be honest, we know as much about the microbiome as we know about outer space. They're still learning a lot about it, but there's research every day showing the interconnectivity between gut health and hormonal development. There was just an article I shared with Kat this morning about how gut health, even for pregnant women, can help, at least in rodent studies, has been linked to the brain health of the child. So it's not something we should overlook. And fun fact, there's also something called the vaginal microbiome, which is obviously unique to women, and also needs its own sort of attention. And a lot of that, is similar to your gut health. It's fermented foods, it's probiotics, potentially taking a probiotic. There are actually some companies that make a vaginal bioflora supplement.
Really?
So, yeah. So I think that that's not something to overlook. It's growing in at least attention in clinical communities, and I think in combination with your hormonal, regulating your hormones, that's definitely something to put top on your list.
And just one more thing, just to add to that, is just speaking particularly about the hip and problems there, is that inflammation in the body, which is often really associated with joint pain as well. There's a huge body of evidence that looks at the link between chronic inflammation and issues with fertility. So, if she does discover that it's taking a long time to conceive. Oh, and by the way, on that, the recommendation is that if you've been trying for less than 12 months and you're 35 or older, more than 12 months and you're 35 and older, then it's probably a good idea to head and get a fertility check, which would be a hormone blood test and an antral follicle count, which is basically an ultrasound of your ovaries, just so they can check out what's going on under the hood. But yeah, linking inflammation and fertility, it's kind of linked in with what we spoke about earlier, which is that survival instinct, which is when conditions are suboptimal, your body is not receptive to becoming pregnant because it's a vulnerable time, effectively. And so if your inflammation markers are high throughout your body, which could be to do with dietary intolerances, it could be to do with certain medications, it could be to do with sickness, it could be to do with illness, or just a very suboptimal lifestyle with hard living, a lot of a bit too much
pandemic lifestyle,
yeah, which we know a thing or two about. Then that can actually negatively impact your reproductive health too.
Absolutely. For those of you that are listening and are on the Thrive Network email, and if you're not, you can just email me. Sandy Hughes is a functional medicine coach. And so she actually assists women in getting their diet absolutely right. And she's starting a fast, a 10-day fast, which I am doing from next week, Wednesday. And she also takes you through exactly what you two are speaking about, but going through the process of getting the microbiomes and all of that in your gut health working perfectly well, because it is absolutely connected to your brain functionality. It's also been linked to depression. And so many other things that you would think have nothing to do with your stomach. So if you want to learn more about that and you haven't signed up for Thrive yet, email me at thrive@susannakennedy.com and you'll be able to connect up there. Another question is coming through. If there's pain in a thyroid, would that indicate a thyroid issue? I would assume yes.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely 100% something to take to your primary care doctor or your GP. Yeah. Any kind of pain, unexplained pain like that, for sure, 100% go and get checked out. We can't speak medically to that, but it sounds like it very well could be, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so and then for you, for Stacey, there's an amazing doctor. Are you in Johannesburg, Stacey, or where are you based? Just let me know. I do know some amazing doctors that I can connect you to so that you can look at that. But I also think just download this app in the meantime, Elanza Wellness. It is available on iOS and what are the two different ones? Android. On Apple and on Android. On both kinds, guys. It's available on all phones. Okay, so download it and it'll start your journey of just looking at things in a different way. Oh, you're in the UK. Okay, but that doesn't matter, because nowadays we are a global community, and like we are sitting here connecting from all over the world, we will be able to connect you to the right people. I also think it would be a great idea, Stacey to get hold of the girls. Girls, what exactly is Elanza Wellness doing from a business perspective? I mean, you've created this amazing book that women can read, which is fantastic, and you've created this amazing app. Are you coaching? How are you assisting women through this?
So we're actually in the process of building an AI-driven virtual fertility coach and patient care platform. So we have a CTO, we have a technical co-founder whose expertise is in very empathetic AI. And so what we're doing is we're taking the full body of our research and many other kind of qualitative interviews and all sorts of things that we've gathered over the last few years, and we're feeding that into a virtual coach. And so what Elanza will eventually be, so at the moment our app is very sort of traditional media and content driven, so podcast, video, things to read and engage with in that sense. But where we're heading towards and what we're building towards is actually a fully living, breathing, engaging, personalized experience where Elanza kind of does what Britt and I do on a one-to-one basis with women at the moment, which is really kind of get into that one-on-one personal lifestyle evaluation. And a lot of it's actually hearing about somebody's plan. You know, we call it fertility forecasting, helping people to figure out exactly what their journey might look like and how to navigate it and the options open to them that are available along the way. And providing kind of emotional, like a shoulder to cry on, really. And it's really strange that you might not think that that would work that well with a virtual coach as opposed to a human. But we've found quite the opposite. And there's published research that shows people are actually more willing to connect and be more open and vulnerable with somebody who's not an actual human, because you don't feel like you're being judged. You know that this is, by definition, a totally objective, trustworthy figure who's going to be able to give you great information, but in no sense judge you. Whereas we kind of bottle things up around other humans. So yeah, that's been a pretty interesting learning curve for us.
Very interesting. How did they do various, or how did they find that out? Because that's very, so opposite to what I suppose I would intuitively have thought, but it makes complete sense when you actually say it, because I think that one of the bravest things people can do is be vulnerable. But it really takes being brave to be vulnerable. So it makes complete sense what you're saying.
Yeah, there was a study, for example, where there were two groups. One of the groups was told, well, both were told that they were responding to bots, and then it was actually a human. And when they found out it was actually a human, they were upset because they had to reveal that there were things that they wouldn't have normally told a human. It was just too personal. And so, yeah, there's definitely a sense of vulnerability that you can have when you don't feel like there is that judgment. And especially, I've actually talked to quite a few fertility doctors and gynecologists about this. You're talking about a subject that's pretty personal, and whether it's your own kind of relationship stuff or if it's your biology, it's all very kind of new and confusing and often can be very awkward for people to ask their doctor. So we're giving them an evidence-based platform in which to both, tell how they're feeling in all honesty without any judgment, and also ask those questions that either they didn't think to ask their doctor or they were too embarrassed to ask their doctor. And that's really where our sort of positioning is different. We are working alongside doctors. So when we went through our own treatments, we just found that it was missing that holistic, integrated, personalized aspect of treatment. So our AI, our sort of AI coach and patient platform is really about working with doctors. So it'd be given to you by your doctor, and that would actually coincide with your treatment journey. So we would know, or Elanza would know along the way, oh, it looks like you're a week away from starting your injections. How are you feeling? Let's get started. Just really being able to coach you, not just on the lifestyle stuff, but really being able to, that's where the empathetic AI comes in. She can sense how anxious you are, sense how, if you need help, if you need support, and then we can actually connect you with, holistic care practitioners on a telehealth platform. So that's whether it's a functional medicine doctor or it's a licensed fertility therapist, knowing those points in which a woman needs more help, needs more emotional support throughout this process. We think what we've seen so far has really been able to impact a lot of women throughout the whole journey.
I think it's great to kind of, or really our thinking on it is, we need to harness the best of technology and then blend it with the benefits of humanity at the same time. So, computers have obviously got thousands of times the cognitive capability of us. And so instead of relying on the memory of one practitioner in treating you, Elanza can actually inform on a far more sophisticated, up-to-date and personalized basis. But at the same time, exactly at the point where a machine doesn't cut it, you actually need connection with a real life human being. That's when she can kind of tap you into a network of the right person for the right point in your journey. Because, as we're hearing today, a lot of the time people are kind of saying, well, how do I find that right person, or who do you recommend? And we have a system for pre-vetting all of the holistic practitioners that we'll work with. So as Britt mentioned, the therapists, nutritionists, and even yoga instructors and acupuncturists. And so kind of bringing all the things that patients like we once were need and want together in one space just makes the process so much easier, when the last thing you want is for it to completely take over your life, because that just adds to stress rather than taking it away.
I think that's one of the common, I can see there are questions coming in, and I promise you I'm going to come back to you guys. But I think that's one of the things that we underestimate when we're going into this, is trying to remember all of the different little things that you need to remember, and then taking hormones that are going into your system, or managing that stress and making sure you stay, more chilled or as chilled as possible through the process. Because isn't that one of the biggest hindrance to falling pregnant? Stress.
Potentially, yes. It's difficult to say whether it's correlation or causation. So we know that people who struggle with fertility are very stressed, but they haven't proven the link as to whether stress causes infertility. But regardless, it's clear from plenty of literature that stress causes issues with hormones that we know can impact reproductive function. So yes, any way to, and what we're talking about here isn't stress in the sense of watching a scary movie or going on a ride or having a fight. It's more the kind of chronic stress of modern lifestyle. So it's all that stuff we were talking about before, where, it's got us all in this constant state of fight or flight. I don't know if anyone's watched the Social Dilemma, but that kind of, the constant pinging of notifications and little boosts of adrenaline constantly. There's huge amounts of adrenal fatigue and all sorts of kind of chronic hormonal conditions at the moment that people are linking back to this state of chronic stress that as a society we're all trapped in.
I will say that what's maybe stress is the hardest one. It's like someone tells you, just don't be stressed, and then it stresses you out more. It's the worst. But we have actually talked to a lot of doctors. One specifically told us that by applying the tenets in our Fertility Fit program, which is, getting enough sleep. Obviously, like if you have sufficient sleep, your body can handle stress better. If you are eating a nutritious diet that is clean and, low in sugar, going back into, some of the things that can optimize your egg quality, that actually gives your body the tools it needs to manage stress. So there are some pretty phenomenal kind of impacts that's had, even for example, this one woman, it was a CEO of a major company out here in Silicon Valley, came in with, She was in her late 30s, had gray hair, no menstrual cycle, and was just extremely frazzled. And after that, we talked about that 3-month time period. So after the 3-month time period of getting all those things in order, her sleep, her diet, her exercise, that she actually got her hair color back.
What?
Her hair color came back. I mean, that's phenomenal. Her hair color came back, her skin cleared up, she got her menstrual cycle regular again. And so, but her stress level, her job didn't change. So that is, I think, where you obviously, some of us just can't pick up and move to Denmark tomorrow, and we can't, change the amount of stress in our lives. But I think just giving you some semblance of hope in the way that if you apply these other factors, that they will all create this knock-on effect onto your stress levels.
So I think with that, with what you've just said now, it's probably a good point to kind of say, what are sort of the 5 main areas that you need to look at to just make sure that you're getting yourself onto the right path. You've mentioned sleep a number of times, and I think it's one of the most underestimated essentials for health. I honestly do. And I know that for me, who went through the journey that I went through of almost dying and all of that, and I know that one of the factors definitely leading up to me being as ill as I was the fact that I was not getting enough sleep, and the sleep that I was getting was not good quality sleep. And so my body was not having the opportunity to actually rebuild itself and replenish itself. And so I'm gonna make that number 1 if you guys are happy with that. But just because I know I've experienced firsthand that sleep is just essential, mental, emotional, it's not just one of them, to all health on all different levels. Do you want to maybe elaborate on that one?
Yeah, Susanna, the scientific data absolutely backs you up on that one. So they've run studies and they found that people with very disrupted sleep patterns, so for instance, night shift workers, so women who are nurses or flight attendants, tend to have far more ovulatory dysfunction, so problems ovulating and issues with infertility than the general population. And yeah, it's not surprising, is it? I mean, I guess sleep is primarily a hormonal process. It's very melatonin. The hormone is super involved, but also several others. And melatonin plays a role in egg quality as well, and the maturation of your eggs. It's entirely
antioxidant, right? It's like a super-powered antioxidant for ovaries, which was a sort of really interesting learning I found. Melatonin, that is.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you're 100% right in calling that the kind of foundational catch-all number 1, and a sort of hot on its heels is diet in terms of its systemic reach. Britt, maybe you want to elaborate on that one.
Yeah, please elaborate on that one. Do you have a diet plan in your app?
We do. We just, it's hard. Everyone has to come at this a little bit differently. What we are doing right now is we're offering something called a fertility fit report. And what you can do is email us, or, you can find us on the website, and we will actually analyze your existing lifestyle habits and give you a report on what we would recommend or that you prioritize in preparation for either pregnancy, fertility treatment, or just general reproductive health. So we would rather make that more personalized, make it rather than a one-size-fits-all plan. But there are some basic tenets that are so important. The main one being just really understanding how sugar works. Your blood sugar levels, they regulate a lot of your hormones because it starts with your thyroid. So we have a lot of recommendations around the GL, your glycemic load, and that's a measure of basically the fibrous content in a food and the amount of sugar and how it hits your bloodstream. Because you get these spikes in blood sugar levels, which dysregulate your hormones, which have been shown to be really problematic. So you also get that, packaged foods, fast foods, basically eating a healthy, clean diet. I mean, we won't go too far into detail because that's where it really is kind of just being healthy in general, but truly understanding how that blood sugar level impacts your body.
So Harvard ran a huge study, and they came up with the fertility diet, as they called it. And it's essentially, I mean, the shorthand is essentially a Mediterranean diet. So that means a diet high in plants. So a lot of plant foods, some whole grains, enough protein. So actually checking the amount of protein required for a woman of your age and weight is a super great place to start. And then when it comes to that protein, getting more of it from plants and fish than from meat, which can be quite an inflamer. And fish obviously contains loads of great omega-3s, which are massively, massively implicated for reproductive health. And beyond that, it's not always possible because of finances, but trying to eat organic and low pesticide, because moving on to our third area, it's endocrine disrupting hormones. So they're essentially chemicals in our environments, and they're frequently found in plastics, pesticides, and beauty products. So that could be deodorant or makeup or even shampoos that have the potential to mimic estrogen in your body, and in that process can cause that cascading effect of hormone dysregulation. So trying to clean up not only your diet, but actually your environment too. So thinking about how clean is your water source and what sorts of pharmaceuticals and chemicals could be in that. And that doesn't always mean going out and buying water in plastic bottles, because in fact, the water in plastic bottles can be terrible for you and for your pocket. So instead, investing in a simple water filtration device or a charcoal stick, just taking it back to nature and trying to purify what you're intaking as much as possible. And the same goes for your air. If you work in a nail salon, wear a mask. They've run studies on women in service industries where they're exposed to lots of chemicals, so hairdressers, nail technicians, and inhaling all of those chemicals can actually be problematic for our hormones as well and have that same estrogen mimicking effect. So take precautions, wear gloves, wear a mask, actually super helpful in the COVID era anyway.
Yeah.
So hopefully we're all getting a little bit hormone by default.
Fun fact too, there is conjecture that all of the environmental toxins in our environment, most of which mimic estrogen, that they're responsible for the 50% decline in sperm counts. So,
and I think that's
there are two sides.
There are two sides. And ladies, in this interview today, in this conversation that we're having, we're focusing on women's reproductive systems and how we can better the quality of the egg. But for the boys, because I can see you guys online, hello and welcome. I can see you guys there. I just want to let you know that your sperm quality also decreases. Although you don't lack sperm, there's like an endless supply of those little guys swimming around, ready to create babies. The actual quality also diminishes over time as you get older. And also what you eat, your environment, all of these things also affect the quality of your sperm. So we'll have to have a conversation about that another time, because the ladies aren't prepped for that one today. But I just want you to be aware that there are things that you can also do for yourself to increase the quality of your sperm. And at the end of the day, it takes an egg and a sperm to make a baby. So we need to look after both. But let's carry on with...
Very important to bring up, Susanna. I'm glad.
Yes.
Absolutely. And actually, to be honest, a lot of the same things that go into egg quality also apply to sperm quality. So I think, if a couple is trying together, just getting on the same wavelength there will be absolutely beneficial. But going back to those environmental toxins, one of the things that we recommend just off the bat, and we have this as the very first sort of exercise in the Fertility Fit app, is to Marie Kondo your makeup drawer. And we have a whole kind of set of parameters just do a bit of a cleanse of your products, both your personal care items and in your kitchen, and just take out some of the, there's so many chemicals out there. I'll say one that was a real shock to me was the term fragrance. So fragrance is a proxy, or it's utilized as a one-line ingredient that covers hundreds of different chemicals, many of which are known hormone disruptors. So it allows a company to just kind of shuffle it into that ingredient list without causing too much room for concern. But anything with the term fragrance, you just want to avoid off the bat. So it's just taking the time. I would say anyone, if they're just starting off this journey, just start right there with your chemical cleanse, whether it's your products in the kitchen, in your bathroom, and your makeup drawer. Those are three of the biggest perpetrators. And if you think about it, that's, your lotion, your hair, anything that touches your skin, especially when it's after you've showered or something and your skin is more porous and more absorbent of those various products, you really want to be conscious of what you're putting onto it. So that is where I would start.
All right, so this is part 2, guys. Welcome to part 2. We are talking about fertility here today. We're talking about egg quality and whether you're wanting to have a baby now naturally, or whether you're wanting to freeze your eggs, or whether you're getting ready for IVF. This is the conversation covering all things egg health for women, and we've touched a little bit on the boys as well. I know one of the questions that came in was, are you ever too young? Like, is it okay to do it in your 20s? And although a lot of doctors don't really want to do it in your 20s just because of the cost of it, absolutely, if you want to do it in your 20s and you have the finances, your egg quality is amazing in your 20s compared to as you get older. So that answers one of the questions that came in afterwards. If you are 35 and older and you've been trying for a year, 12 months, with no success, there are tests that you can actually go and do to have a look at what your egg count is and what's going on with your egg quality. So these two lovely ladies that have joined me here today, Brittany and Catherine, are tuning in from England. And are you in LA?
San Francisco.
San Francisco.
California.
San Francisco, and they have written an amazing book, which is all about freezing your eggs. But it's not only for women who want to freeze their eggs, it's for anybody who wants to fall pregnant at some point. It's all the things you need to know. They've also launched an incredible app called Elanza Wellness, and it's ELANZA Wellness. It's available on Apple and Android. I hope I said that right. And it's free. You can download it, and it's packed with all kinds of information, meditations, and support systems to basically be your friend on this journey towards fertility health. Yes, ladies, did I cover that well enough?
Sure.
Did I leave anything out?
No, I think that was great.
Okay, so we were on point number 3, which were the toxins, and you were saying that. So point number 1 was sleep health, guys. Getting good sleep is so important to the health of your body, mind, spirit, and heart. The other thing is then looking. The second very important thing to do is look at your diet, look at your food. And one of the things that Catherine brought up was the fact that look at your age and the amount of protein that you're getting in. And Mediterranean diets are apparently really good, the Mediterranean diet. But looking at proteins coming from plant bases more than from meats. And although fish is very good with your omegas, staying away from your red meats is better. I'm a vegetarian, so I don't eat any meat at all. But I know that one of the reasons, I mean, for me, I can't eat anything that has a mother, but one of the reasons that I also think that is a good reason to stay away from meats is because a lot of meats have been pumped with hormones and all kinds of things to grow the poor animal excessively fast, and that putting that in your body is not good for you. So be very conscious. If you are a meat eater, please try and eat free range and humanely looked after animals, because it will make a difference to your health as well. So I'm not lecturing anyone, but I just do think be aware of what you're putting into your body. What would be, and then we went on to number 3, which were toxins. And we are so unaware, guys and girls, of the amount of toxins that we are actually putting into our bodies on a day-to-day basis, simply by drinking out of a plastic bottle, the makeup we put on our faces, the cleaning products in our homes, just to name a few. So do you have a list, by the way, of the like yes and the please stay away froms?
Absolutely. So this is one where we would be here for hours if we tried to tell you all on this chat. But in the app, the very first, I would say your first port of call, the very first thing you do is go through a little bit of a product cleanse, and we've got a full exercise to help you do that. And basically it's attacking each room at a time. Take your kitchen, your makeup drawer, your bathroom, and then we just help you kind of go through those and make sure that you've got products that aren't going to disrupt your hormones or cause oxidative stress. And so that's all pretty tactical. We've tried to make that as easy and practical as possible. So you can find all of that inside of the app. And we also have, if you're interested in all the research behind it, that can be found in our book, Everything Egg Freezing. So that has been a real, believe me when I say it was shocking, the amount of, just stuff in our system that's unregulated. And quite honestly, it's a lot of the time it's because these chemicals aren't causing us to have a third eye tomorrow. It's women that are affected primarily, who we don't do enough research on anyway, and it's more long-term impact. So it's harder to measure in which to kind of prevent them from being in our system. So this is a category where you have to be your own advocate. You have to really suss out your products. Like I said, look for that term fragrance, because that is a proxy for a ton of different chemicals that are often endocrine disruptors or hormone disruptors. But yeah, I would say that's your first protocol is a little bit of a chemical cleanse.
And then,
yeah.
In terms of kind of another area which would turn into a huge list if we tried to reel it off, so we won't do that. You can find that in the app too. It's deficiencies and supplementation. And so, the number one port of call nutritionally should always be diet. Vitamins, minerals, they're just far more bioavailable from foods than they are from fake little tablets. But there's definitely a role for some of them, and that's been clinically proven. So far, far, far more people living in the West, eating, or the global West, and eating a modern diet are at risk of deficiencies than we ever could have imagined. And this is all kind of published in very reputable medical journals. I won't pull out all of them. As I say, you can find them in the app. But one I just want to speak about is vitamin D, which is very implicated in egg quality, egg health. But it's something that the public health messaging has, which has been fantastic around skin cancers, of us all slathering on our factor 50s and keeping our skin looking as young as possible, has arguably had an unwanted side effect of actually now causing relatively high vitamin D deficiencies in some populations. And that's particularly true if you have non-white skin, where it's harder for sunlight and the vitamin D manufacturing process in your body to take place because of the melanin layer. And so that is a big one to think about supplementing with, because you can't get it. Your body can't make it, and you can only get tiny little bits from your diet. And so it's
actually interesting it's interesting that you're bringing up vitamin D, because we were actually speaking about vitamin D today, me, my dad, and my boyfriend. And I live in South Africa, where you guys met me. And for those of you watching from all over the world, because I can see there's people tuned in from all over the world, you would think that South Africans, would be getting enough vitamin D. But my dad recently went for blood tests. My parents are very good at going for blood tests to check, what they're deficient in. And they were both deficient in vitamin D. And my dad is a cyclist, for crying out loud. So he is like on a bicycle in the sun frequently, and he's still deficient in vitamin D. When I was going through chemo as well, and when I was sick, I was not allowed in the sun at all. And one of the things that I did find is that egg yolk, ladies and gentlemen, and shiitake mushrooms are a good source of vitamin D. So if you are finding that you are deficient and you'd like to add some shiitake mushrooms and some eggs into your diet, that might give you a little bit of a boost. But a lot of people don't realize that they're deficient in vitamin D, and they don't realize the importance of vitamin D in their diet either.
Well, what's interesting when it comes to fertility, both melatonin and vitamin D play a role. And what's, there's vitamin D does have a variety of benefits, but one thing that scientists are looking into or are curious is about seasonal reproduction and the role that, light and dark play in your life, and your reproductive system sees various things like melatonin, as we mentioned, is like a triple threat antioxidant for your ovaries. And then on the same token, if you get vitamin D during the day, it helps your body, or sunlight, it indicates to your body that, it's a clear sign that it's daytime. And then melatonin knows to spike up higher, and therefore you get better quality sleep. So there's interconnectivity with both seasonality and then sleep cycles, which I think are, obviously very important for, as we mentioned, as isolated nutrients, important for your ovaries. But there is some conjecture that it has to do with, seasonality and reproduction, and just having access to the good sleep, really.
Yeah. So that is, where are we now? That would be number 4. So what would be the fifth?
Just quickly on supplements.
Yeah.
We have a variety of supplements, and we won't be able to go into all of them, but that's another one where we have a whole supplement section in the app and in our book, and you can use it as a checklist. There's some ones that really may surprise you. Like I mentioned, melatonin. You probably want to take a prenatal, specifically ones with, we have a list of the certain components that need to be comprised in that prenatal. A lot of prenatals are just kind of a random array of nutrients. And then ubiquinol is another one that is really important. And we won't have time to go into that, but that's more about helping your cells, powering the process of generating quality eggs. And then, we have a whole list in there just to make it easy. But vitamin D, great one.
Vitamin D is definitely a great one, but it's not only about getting the right vitamins and minerals, it's about the quality of them, isn't it? So do you also have brands that you recommend within the app?
Exactly. We have a product section of pre-vetted brands, which we've looked through the ingredients, made sure there's no suspicious kind of bulking agents, and that they've got the right percentages, they're formulated correctly to be impactful. And then the final area that I think it's really important to talk about is exercise. So obviously we know that exercise is super important for health and well-being systemically. It's great for mind, body, soul. Also, getting it in the right balance is great for fertility. So scientists have been busy looking into something that they've termed REDS, which is relative energy deficiency in sport, which is effectively a tendency in female athletes or women who, as they put it, a bit of a value judgment, but overtrain, to be operating sometimes completely unwittingly on a calorie deficit. And so it's super important that if you are, heavily involved in your exercise, that you're making sure that your nutrition is absolutely spot on, and you're making sure to replace the calories lost during aerobic burns. If you are doing a lot of kind of hardcore exercise, try mixing in a couple of days a week of more gentle exercise like yoga, things that can kind of support your well-being as much as keeping you physically healthy. It's a really difficult one because we don't want to scare people off from exercising, and that's always the danger when you kind of put a red flag on anything to do with fertility, because actually, the opposite is true. Couch potatoes struggle with infertility as often, if not more often, than people who exercise very, very frequently and very, very hard. It's more about, like so many things, and getting our bodies to operate optimally. It's about finding that balance for you. And so the balance for an Olympic athlete is, let's face it, probably going to be quite different to the balance for me. So if I started training at that level tomorrow, maybe in 3 months' time, if I tried to conceive, I might struggle in a way that they wouldn't. So, gently increasing levels of exercise or decreasing levels of exercise, and trying not to do anything too hard, too sudden changes in routine. And the same goes for crash dieting too. And that's very linked into the blood sugar point that we were making earlier. So doing everything in moderation.
Everything in moderation. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you one more chance to ask questions. You're welcome to ask them on Instagram or Facebook. I've got them both open in front of me. And while you guys do that, I'm just going to let the ladies let you know how to get hold of them if people want to get hold of you. Is that okay? Should they write to you? What is the best thing to do?
Yeah, we have an email, which is info, I-N-F-O, at Elanza Wellness, E-L-A-N-Z-A wellness.com. And that will actually go to both of us, our entire company, as well as our other team members. And we'll make sure to get back to you if you have specific questions, or, a lot of the stuff is answered in the Fertility Fit app, as well as our book, Everything Egg Freezing. And we're always looking to, support women through this process. As we're building out the next iteration of Elanza, we want to make sure that we're building it, the right thing that can really impact people. So the more feedback, the more, more we can help people, the more they can help us, honestly. And we really hope, there's, at least in the US, about 700,000 people undergo fertility treatment every year. And it is, 30% of people drop out because of distress. And there's just a lot of data that shows that it's a pretty terrifying and terrible process. So anything we can do to make that better and help empower people. One stat we hadn't mentioned yet, which is super important, or sort of encompasses everything we've talked about, is that there is the possibility to increase success rates in pregnancy and IVF by 27% by undergoing some of these lifestyle interventions. So in IVF, your average success rate is going to hover around 30%. So you're looking at doubling your odds. So this is definitely something to take heed of. It's, we've found it a disservice that it's not part of clinical care, but what we're trying to do is really bolster what is the existing healthcare system in order to really empower people, men and women, to take more control over their reproductive health, because there is so much that we can do.
And just to add to that, you can email us on the info at email address that Brittany just gave, or I think Susanna has a link as well. We've set up something that we call a virtual coffee date with a fertility expert, where that's just a one-on-one with either of us, where if you've got really particular questions or you want to run through our kind of fertility forecasting exercise that we do, or just even specifically talk about egg freezing with someone who's been through it, like both of us have, then you can set that up with us either by emailing info at, or I believe Susanna has the link and might post it beneath the video.
Yes, I absolutely will. So ladies, I can see that some of you do have specific questions, like how do I work out what is the right amount of exercise for me and what I should be doing, and what is good quality sleep. So I think those are really great things to actually jump into the app, have a look around, and then I will absolutely put a link to Elanza Wellness's website, and you'll be able to see the link to get the app. And I will, for those of you that are Thrive members, you'll get that in your newsletter as well. I'm sending that out tomorrow morning, so you can look forward to that as well. And who is here? Stacy. I will definitely link you up with the girls, and Kalaneha and all of the other girls that have really put in questions and been involved. Thank you, because I know that it's very brave to be vulnerable and say, sorry, I have a question on such a public platform, but I know that you guys asking your questions has allowed other women to have their questions answered in the process. So thank you for being brave. I really appreciate you. Thank you for being here with me again. And I'm so proud of you guys. I mean, we really spoke about this while you were writing the book the first time, and you've gone and published the book. It is available on Amazon as well, guys. So I will put the link there so that you can buy the book. And please support these women, because their mission is to empower as many of you as possible. And that's why I wanted them on the platform today. But thank you so much, ladies. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Susanna.
It's such a pleasure. But I hope you have a lovely Heritage Day, guys. I was really thinking about this today. It's Heritage Day in South Africa. And we've got such an incredible, rich array of cultures that are all living together in this incredible country. And I love celebrating all the different beautiful ceremonies and things that we do in these different cultures. But at the end of the day, we need to always remember that we are all part of the same human race. We are all in this together. So respecting and caring about each other's cultures is essential. But more than that, at the end of the day, just respecting each other as human beings is the most important thing. Be kind to one another, have compassion. Everybody is walking their own path, has their own struggles. So send them love and kindness. And I thank you all for taking the time in joining me today. Bye for now.